Tell us who you are and where we are.
Yeah, my name is Glen Milner, and I'm with Ground Zero Center for Nonviolent Action. And we're just about, well, we're not quite in the middle of Hood Canal. We're next to the submarine base, naval base, Kitsap Bangor. And we're having an event here that's called Boats by Bangor. And this is something that we've always dreamed of doing. We've done it, a few boats at a time. The last large demonstration was in 1982 when Ground Zero members tried to block the USS Ohio coming into Hood Canal. So today is more of a nonviolent presence and a witness, nonviolent witness. We're kind of towards there's another facility north of us, a magnetic silencing facility, which is, we didn't go quite that far. We came from the south, and it's actually it's going to be demolished anyway. So this is essentially the northern part of the base. We're looking at what was the first explosive handling wharf. It was built in I believe 1978, and this is where Trident missiles and Trident warheads are loaded on the Trident submarines, and they're brought down separately. The way they load them now is the missiles come down in a loading tube on the back of a truck. They weigh they're 44 feet long, 130,000 pounds, and they'll basically hoist them up from the flatbed truck and lower them down in the submarine and they use a loading tube that they fasten to the top, and then they have a winch that lowers the submarine in this loading tube. So anyway, the second large building is the second handling explosives wharf. This is the wharf that they started an environmental impact statement in 2009. Ground Zero attended all of the scoping meetings. We attended everything. We attended meetings regarding the draft EIS where you could comment. And at all of the meetings, we talked about the dangers of the propellant. And one submarine is equal to 3.7 million pounds of TNT. And because they built these two wharves so close together, when there's two missile handling operations going on at each wharf, it's equal to 7.4 million pounds of TNT if there's an accident. Throughout the EIS, the Navy stated there's no new threat from the wharf. We thought otherwise, and in 2012 we filed a lawsuit at the end of the EIS challenging their findings. And what we've discovered in records that released through the court was that the Explosive Safety Board that oversees all military establishments would not grant a permit for this. And they asked the Navy to prove that an accident at one wharf would not cause a detonation that would cause the detonation of the second wharf, which is exactly what we're talking about, the 7.4 million pounds of explosives. Anyway, that lawsuit is now in the Ninth Circuit. Really any day we could get a response, and it was interesting. Our three Ninth Circuit judges, they were three of them. They're all women, and the one woman that seemed to take the lead on it was attentive. They were all attentive, and she seemed to understand the issues. And she actually, the head judge said to the Navy, I forget the term. There's a term that, that there's no harm caused from an error. And what she suggested to the Navy that might be their only argument, that they mishandled the EIS, but they might argue there's no harm. But she understood, this is probably likely too much that I'm saying here, but she understood the issues, and we're waiting for the ruling. Below, further south here, is the Delta Pier. Actually, in between, there's marginal wharf, and that was built in 1956. It doesn't look like much here. It's south of the second explosive handling wharf, and the marginal wharf was actually used to ship ammunition to Vietnam. And there were demonstrations in Hood Canal regarding this. I think so. You were involved. The marginal wharf.
Yeah, we came down here
Yeah.
occasionally, but mostly it was at the Hood Canal Bridge.
Yeah. So, yeah, Mary Gleifstein was involved in waterborne demonstrations against ammunition going to Vietnam. And the wharf right now is about half of it is not functional. I think, and basically they'll just store a submarine there. Further south, and we have ways to go here in our boat, but further south where the blue cranes are is the Delta Pier. And that's it's built in 1980 and can handle up to 4 submarines. And there's a dry dock in there, so they can actually, there's further to the shore, they can actually pull a Trident submarine in there and they pump all the water out, and so they can work on the outer parts of the submarine. Right now, there is a Trident submarine at the Delta Pier. I mean, there almost always is. I've never seen any aerial photos where there wasn't a Trident submarine here, and there is one here today. No surprise. On the north, so it's on the north side of the Delta Pier, and you can you can't see it very well from here, but when we get right next to it, you can see the fin. I don't know all the details on what the submarines are called, but the fins coming out, and you can see the top part of the submarine there. And and then further south is a service pier. I haven't been able to see it today, but I'm told that there's an attack submarine there, an SSN, at the service pier. So we have the Golden Rule here today, which is it's like very exciting. I mean, to come out here in itself is something I always wish that we could do. We've talked about it a lot. It's hard to get a boat into Hood Canal. A lot of it is because the Navy controls so much of it. They have easements the state has granted to the Navy, which basically gives them the control of a lot of the shore, a lot of the inland areas. And so we had to go and put our boat, this boat here that I'm on came from Pleasant Harbor Marina, which is about 14 miles away. So it's quite a ways. The kayaks put in at King Spit, just south of the base. We found people who were supportive. But anyway, it's a magical experience today. We're here with the Golden Rule, which is the boat in 1958 that 4 Quakers, they purchased the boat. They sailed from California to Hawaii, and they were going to go to the South Pacific to stop atmospheric nuclear testing. They were actually arrested leaving Hawaii. They never made it. And the boat sort of disappeared and reappeared about 6 years ago. The Vets for Peace in California found it. They came across it. Someone realized what it was. And miraculously, the Vets for Peace in Humboldt Bay rebuilt it. All they had was the hull of the Golden Rule, and they built it all up. And I'm told a lot of the hull was good, but it was made from exotic wood from Central America, and they rebuilt it correctly. But anyway, it's a dream come true to be out here with the Golden Rule, and we're in this sailboat here, Dirk Gleistein's boat, and 13 kayaks are out here today with us. Earlier today we had gathered together, and we were all in one location, and there's music on the Golden Rule. We have quite a Navy presence here. We have the sheriff just west of us, sheriff boat. These are Navy boats that patrol this perimeter, outer perimeter, and then inside of this, where these 5 buoys are, there's also a floating fence. And the floating fence, there's a high security area. The floating fence ties into a land interface to the water. There's the aerial views here almost looks like a highway going through the base, but it's actually their security fencing, the security zones, cordon off the swift pack where the warheads are stored. You know, I made a map. I don't know if you can see it or not, but in the map, we discovered just recently that at SwiftPack they built a new facility and finished in 2012 that will handle all of the warheads at Bangor. So there's approximately 1,300, I believe there's 1,300 warheads at Bangor. Maybe half are at sea, so you know maybe there's 700. I'm guessing, you know, 600-700 stored at this new facility. And they started the design in 2002 and completed the actual construction in 2012, and it was a $294 million project. So anyway, right now we're going home. Basically, we're escorting the kayaks back. We're escorting the Golden Rule back to the south end here. I believe later this afternoon they're going to have a barbecue, actually at King's Spit. We won't be part of that on this boat. We'll be going back to Pleasant Harbor Marina, in part because we can't get ashore very easily.
And this is the largest known concentration of nuclear weapons in North America, is that correct?
It is. Yeah, we recently tried to buy a bus ad. We wanted 14 ads on the buses that said that, the largest concentration of nuclear warheads in the United States. The bus company, Metro Bus, there was actually the bus, Metro Bus, Metro Transit, wouldn't allow the ad, and they wanted us to prove that it was true. And so this was extremely helpful. Hans Christensen is with the Federation of American Scientists, and he said, "I'll help you." I mean, when we told him our problem, he said, "I'll help you. You know, with as much my background, the information I have." And he did, of course. And so we proved to the bus company that our statement was true. That, in fact, it's on the. We have a full replica of the bus ad on the boat here. So, but that was what happened in the process. Hans Christensen was, paying more attention to the subbase and, putting his facts together. And then he discovered the roof of this weapons facility and realized it reminded him of one that was at Kirkland Air Force Base, although smaller. And so basically what he did is then, on Google Earth, you can look at historic photos. So he, went through the years, every couple of years they'll have an aerial photo of Bangor. And he was able to see the construction of it. And actually on his blog, he lays out, things like where the air handling units are, where the submarines, or where the warheads are stored in the facility. So that's how we actually learned about that. It was just recently in the last few months. And it was actually a result of Ground Zero buying the bus ad that that he made that discovery.
Can you talk about how the communities, the surrounding communities to where we are now, we're on Hood Canal, if there is an accident, an explosion at the base here, how are they notified beyond seeing the explosion themselves? What measures are there to protect the people that live nearby?
Well, they're not notified. At the two wharves together, if there's missile handling at one time, it's 7.4 million pounds of TNT if both submarines were to mass detonate. And the Navy seemed to have the foresight to know this because they bought land on the other side of Hood Canal that belongs to the Navy, that the explosive handling arc fits perfectly in that property, but it doesn't fit on the north side. And there, as a result of the lawsuit, there was a record released, and a guy said this actually recently, in the last couple of years. He said the base should have been 1.3 miles longer to handle all the explosives in here. So on the north end of the base, there's actually homes, I think it's something like 136 homes that are inside the explosive handling arc for these wharves. The Navy actually does not want the public to know about emergency programs. They filed a lawsuit. I did a public records request to Kitsap County Department of Emergency Management, and they were in the process of releasing records to me through the State Public Records Act. And the feds filed a lawsuit in federal court to stop that. And in fact, the thing is still going. This was, if I remember right, I think it was like January 2015, I think I filed a request. And I've done, requests before, but this is like a new one. And the Navy, it was the Department of Justice attorneys in Seattle filed for an injunction. What we finally did, there was another reporter who was trying to get the same records, Ed Friedrich with the Kitsap Sun, and we, as a result of this attempt to get a permanent injunction, we both withdrew our requests, which made the court case moot. But they still, I had to file I had to join the court case to fight that they dismissed the case, because I was afraid Kitsap County was going to make an agreement with the Navy. So anyway, short story, the public doesn't know. I do have a record that shows they're supposed to listen to a couple radio stations if there's an accident, but they never explain what the issues are. There's zones that are radiological emergency zones. They never explain what would cause that, what you're supposed to do. Well, actually, in the records, there's two things you can do. You can shelter in place, which is, and I guess you're supposed to know you're supposed to have duct tape or something, and duct tape up your doors and stuff. Or they'll tell you to leave immediately. But you have to listen to two radio stations, and I would be surprised if the radio stations even know they're supposed to make these announcements. And no one knows it anyway. One of the emergency protective zones is there's an elementary school that's within the zone, and I made a public records request to the school district if they knew anything about this, and they didn't. They didn't have any knowledge whatsoever that they were in a protective zone, a radiological zone, potential radiological zone, or if there's something they're supposed to do if there's an accident. And that's it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that civic leaders don't press for more information. One example: the Department of Energy at the Pantex plant in Texas, near Amarillo, Texas, where they handle all the nuclear warheads. They have a detailed emergency response plan, and it's right on their website. If you go to their website, they have the areas around the plant broken down into zones, and they'll tell you where to head out of town, basically. And so they're very clear about it, and they say that this is all roads lead to Pantex is their motto, and they're talking about nuclear weapons. But the Navy is very different. The Department of Defense is very different. They claim that it's national security, but I don't think it is. They just don't want the public to know what the threat is. The support from the community is so important to them.
Didn't they have a near miss accident here? Let's say about 10 years back, when they're loading a missile, and the sheriff's department was never notified about it?
Yeah, well, actually, pretty sure it was. If I remember, it was 2003, and it was one of these, just like I was describing. It was one of these loading operations where they had the missile tube on top of the submarine. And in this case, they had a winch in there, and they had it set up. They were hooked onto the missile, ready to pull it out of the submarine. And it was coffee time. So the sailors went and had their coffee break. And when they came back, they forgot that they left a ladder in the missile tube. So they started to winch the missile up, and the ladder went through the nose cone, and it was, within inches of the warheads. And it didn't come out till months later that this accident had happened. Well, actually, what had happened was one commander had been fired, and if I remember this right, one commander was fired because I remember I did a Public Records Act asking what happened to this guy. But it became public because the Navy was going to court-martial the sailors on the explosive handling wharf that were handling it. And so this is what I hear anyway, they leaked the information to a person who went to the media, and that's how it came out. And like I say, I think it was March 2004 that the information came out, and it might have been November 2003 when the accident was. And what the director of the Kitsap County Emergency Management said when she heard about it, she said, "I didn't know about it till I read about it in the newspaper, and it must have not been that big a deal because the Navy would have told me if I needed to know." But they shut down, they fired 3 commanders at SwiftPac as a result of the accident. And they shut down all nuclear warhead handling at SwiftPac for a couple of months anyway, before they were recertified. So it was a very big deal. I mean, there's even, supposedly the president was notified. I mean, that was one report. That was I don't know. I guess it'd be a broken arrow or something, and the president was notified. But I have no idea on that. But we do know three commanders were sacked, and they shut down warhead handling operations for a couple of months.
So it's my understanding that warheads, to get to this base, the warheads are currently brought via trucks, but they used to be brought via trains called what?
The White Train.
The White Train.
Yeah, the White Train. They stopped the last White Train. Actually, when they built the base, Magnuson was concerned about the explosives, and he was concerned about the warheads. And Magnuson got the Navy and the Department of Energy to agree to only ship warheads by train, which they did. And what started happening was when demonstrators became aware of this, between the Pantex plant in Texas and the base here, there started being demonstrations all along the way. Actually in Portland there was a big one. I don't know how many here, maybe 4 or 5. And the trains would come, I believe, like every 6 months or so. They were fairly regularly, that they would come. And you couldn't miss them. The cars were, for a while, they were all painted white, and then the Department of Energy painted the sides eventually. But the last White Train to come in here was in February 1985, and there was 20 or 21 demonstrators. In June 1985, a jury in Kitsap County found the defendants not guilty of blocking the train. Kitsap County had initially pressed for conspiracy charges. They wanted conspiracy charges. It was, these demonstrations had really gotten to the point where they felt obviously they needed to do something. They had a conspiracy charge against demonstrators, which would have been 3 months in jail, plus trespass, which was another 3 months. So for a while, demonstrators from that action were looking at up to 6 months in jail. They ended up dropping the conspiracy charges, but they did continue with the trespass. And the jury found the defendants not guilty. And the jury statement. The jury was really creative. They invented kind of what they said was it was so complicated out on the railroad tracks that no one could know, that was confusing for the demonstrators whether they were supposed to be there or not. It was something like that. So anyway, in February 1985 was the last white train to come to Bangor, and after that they started shipping them by trucks, which they still do today. I mean, they're refurbishing these warheads all the time. There's a 100 kiloton W-76 warhead that I think they're near completion as far as refurbishing the warheads. The W-88 is the 455 kiloton, and that's what they will start. And if they haven't started now, that they will soon. And they load these on trucks, ship them to Pantex. The trucks are unmarked, so they go down I-5 at least part of the way, and they're dismantled at Pantex, and they're refitted, different triggers on them, and brought back. Which they're always, at this base, they're always working on. They're always doing construction on the base. They're always working. They're always upgrading the missiles. They're always testing. They're always training the sailors when they're not out at sea. They're training in facilities here, as far as operating the submarine, and as far as launching the missiles. They're in training for that. But anyway, the second wharf, the Navy said they needed because of the upgrades to the missiles and because of the upgrades to the warheads. They claimed anyway that they needed this added facility.